Hi, everyone. We are live today, and I'm very excited about this one. This is one that holds near and dear to me.
Mm.
Again, by way of introduction, I'm Allie Wyatt. I am the co founder and CEO of Female Founder Collective and the 10th House, which is our private membership community. Before I get started with Bright Harbor and Emmy Bush, I'm first going to talk about the fact that we have a very significant cohort that's opened up. When I say cohort, I mean our membership community. We let people in 6 times a year. We focus on industries. And in this industry, we're focusing on home. So if you are an interior designer, if you're an architect, if you're a builder, if you are creating a phenomenal bedding brand or tabletop, this is the right group for you to join. Um, you'll find things inside like asking all of the questions that you need to know about scaling your business or what new materials you should be using nowadays given the incidence of disasters, which we will get into. You might be asking how you scale yourself as an individual entrepreneur and a service-based business owner. So all of these things are going to be covered. It's a really, I think, impactful one just because through collaboration as a founder within the home industry, we can get so much further. So I definitely encourage you to join. But without further ado, I am really excited to have Emmy here. I know we have so many questions for her. And when disaster struck in my hometown, or where I was living in the Pacific Palisades, Bright Harbor actually was something that was sent along to me as an amazing resource. And so we wanted to share it with you all and ask her some of the questions that certainly came up for me on a personal level, but also get into some of the things that you all can do as business owners as you're looking at how to protect yourself for the future. So, without further ado, Emmy is the CMO of Bright Harbor, as well as an entrepreneur and angel investor herself, and she's focused on disruptive businesses. And as far as Bright Harbor go, it accelerates and improves recovery after natural disasters. So they help survivors manage their insurance process, work with FEMA, find government programs and private grants, connect with trusted vendors, understand the total cost of recovery, and make key recovery decisions. And their dedicated disaster recovery specialists design personalized recovery plans and provide text and scheduled phone support to help clients move through the ever changing and super complicated recovery process. I mean, that can't be overstated enough how complicated the recovery process is. And certainly ever changing every single day. So thank you, Emmy, for being here. I first wanted to ask you what drew you to this work with Bright Harbor. Like, how does
Yep.
one get into this?
Yeah. First of all, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and I really love the group that you guys have put together. It's really incredible and the work that you guys do in the world. So first of all, just thank you for all of that. Um, yeah, I have been a founder since I was basically 22 years old. I've jumped around many different industries from real estate to blockchain to health. Bunch of my businesses have failed, as you can imagine. Have sold a couple, have actually bought back a couple.
That's cool.
And yeah, it's probably a
I feel
story
like
for
we
another
need to do
day.
a whole session with you on that.
Yeah, we probably could. Yeah. Yeah, bought my co-founder. Um, and uh, and yeah, when I started looking at this problem, a friend of mine was working on this business, and his name's Joel, and he brought me into find product market fit. And in finding it, the LA fires hit. And one of our first clients in LA was my best friend of 8 years. And he lost his home in the Palisades fire. Someone who is wildly capable, wildly talented, like, in my opinion, one of the greatest minds. And watch him go through this very emotional, very challenging experience. And I don't think I'd ever looked at disaster in that way before or really ever understood what it meant to be a survivor. And in that moment, I had this front seat to the entire experience. And the grieving process is different for every person. Every person is going to experience it. The shock that people are in the beginning. I personally have never seen such a need for something more in my life. And yeah, it was life changing for me to have such a front row seat to it. And it made me just that with very early days, we opened up phone lines. That was like the first thing we did in LA was we just, if anyone needed support, you could call us and you could talk to us. And I remember I got on the phone with this one woman who had a 5-month-old, and she was whispering because her 5-month-old hadn't slept in a couple of days, and she had finally gotten back. And I started telling her about what we did, and she just like burst into tears. And I couldn't help myself but like cry on the phone with her because it was such this emotional experience that I was having with a client, which I don't think is quite as normal in most industries where you have this like crying on the phone with somebody that you do work for. And it just made me understand that the level of overwhelm, the level of stress, the level of just dismay that people are in and shock is unimaginable. And if we can do something to support people through what I would arguably say is one of the most challenging moments of their life, and we can be a guide, I just couldn't think of a better way to spend my time, my energy, my mental power than helping such a community that has such a deep need.
Well,
So that's what drew me.
as somebody who's on the receiving end of that, I cannot thank you enough because it's just this whole new world opens up and you have to become an expert very quickly at things you've never even scratched the surface of, right? In topics in industries that you never thought that you would open a book to. Then you have to become very well read and researched very quickly. So you guys stepping in is a huge help. So with that, can you talk a little bit about what Bright Harbor does, and the services that you do offer so that people have a sense of like what they could come to you for?
Yeah, of course. So obviously as I kind of talked about just in that first question, but the recovery process is deeply emotional. And we genuinely believe that it is not it's more challenging to recover emotionally until you've actually recovered financially. And so what we really focus on is the financial recovery. And what does that look like? So what we do, we focus on small businesses and individuals, and we help them look at this as a financial event. We look at we basically kind of build what we consider to be almost a P&L for your recovery. So we help you understand what your total losses are, and then what your total potential is in terms of what you could potentially recover, and then how to actually get that. So what that looks like in practice is we help you navigate insurance, we help you navigate FEMA. The money FEMA is the federal emergency management agency, and then what additional money that you can get from SBA, which is the Small Business Administration, which most people think SBA is only available to small businesses, but it actually becomes available to small businesses as well as individuals after a major nationally
Individuals as
declared
well?
natural disaster.
And
Yeah,
how
individuals as well, which most people don't
qualified?
know. Yeah, it's a great question. So you qualify through their website, and right now, like in LA, SBA is offering up to $500,000 in a loan that can be anywhere from 2% on the low end. I think it's like a little over 2% on the low end, up to 4% or on the higher end. And you can get a loan for just being affected by a natural disaster. Which obviously, if you have any level of insurance gap or funding gap, that loan is better than any loan that you can get from any bank right now. And it can be the difference between whether you rebuild your house or your business or you don't. Like it's massive.
As an individual, like do you
So
have to
anyway,
have
that's our focus is really like how do we reduce the chaos? Yeah, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt. I think there's a little lag between us, but I was just saying that as an individual, how do you access that, for example? Like do you have to do you have to have your place of business was tied in with your home, which a lot of our founders and a lot of people that applied to our grants, actually their place of business was at their home and their inventory was there? Or can you just apply even as an individual person?
Yeah, so you could actually potentially, if you were individually affected and your business was affected, you could potentially get two loans. You could get a loan that's based on an individual and your individual property that was affected. And then you could also get a loan if you run your business out of your property for your small business. So you could
Mhm.
theoretically get up to two loans for, I mean, you have to qualify, but you can do that all through SBA's website. And it's part of what we do. Like, we actually help guide people. We had a client the other day who was very qualified for an SBA loan. He was kind of in the spinning wheel of death, of just like not being able to get through to the right person. And we actually are pretty tapped into the SBA. So we emailed one of their top directors, and within 3 hours, one of our clients was on the phone with SBA and was approved for a loan. So we do a lot of like kind of back of the envelope work that looks a lot like that because we're super plugged into those areas.
And can you speak to, as far as the services go, like how does the pricing structure work? Like for people to start to access you immediately? Because I'm assuming that after this, you're actually going to have a number of new clients calling your phones and trying to onboard.
Yeah, totally. So we're $299 a month. Um, I can kind of talk about the different options that you have available after a natural disaster of groups that can help you, which might be helpful. We're
Yeah.
$299 a month. Yeah, you can sign up on our website. You just put in all of your information. You'll schedule a call with one of our specialists, and then they will get on the phone and they will actually work your specific case and walk you through all of your options, whether you're a small business or a homeowner or a renter, or you own let's say you own a coffee shop and you own the property, or you just rent the property. Like,
Yeah.
we've dealt with pretty much every level of complication.
Yeah.
Um, what I'll tell, I can kind of walk you through the options of who you can kind of go to after natural disasters, which might be helpful.
Yeah. I think that would be great, is to know just like, or even first week out as disasters hit, what should be a business owner's first steps?
Yeah. Okay. So first week out, the first thing that you really want to do, this is regardless of whether you're a renter or an owner, assuming you have insurance, you want to contact your insurance company. Um, you, if you're, let's say you're a renter, and this could be renter from a business standpoint or renter from an individual standpoint. If you have insurance, you want to contact your insurance company. And if you are a renter, you also are going to want to contact the owner of the building just to let them know that something has happened. Um, in some cases, you may still even owe actual rent on the property. It's all going to be dependent on your insurance, what it covers, what it doesn't cover. Like, your insurance may cover your rent. It depends on the level of disaster that's happened to the actual physical structure. If you're an owner, the structure is slightly different. You still want to notify insurance, but you also get in touch with your mortgage company if you have like any level of loan against the property. You potentially, like in LA's case, you can pause your mortgage payments. In most cases, outside of LA, let's say it starts to get a little more complicated, because whether you can pause your mortgage payments or not, or like what kind of avenues you can go down, really depends on whether the federal government actually declares a specific disaster like a full federal natural disaster. And if it does, then it starts unlocking all of these different tools that you can go down. But that's the first thing you do. The second thing that you should do is make sure you document absolutely everything. That means photos, receipts, any inventory that could have been lost, any potential damages that could have happened. You want to be taking pictures, videos. You want to just document absolutely everything. This will make sure that when and if you do have to go to insurance or FEMA, you can really get the maximum payouts here. And then,
Question for you, Emmy, on that
Mhm.
front.
Yeah, of
Because
course.
that's
Yeah.
something we were totally unfamiliar with. And as I met up with people when we had all evacuated, my friend was like, "Oh, yeah, it was so weird going around your house and taking pictures." And I was like, "I didn't do that. Why'd you do that?" And she was like, "For insurance." And I was like, "I didn't know to do that." I've never lived in a natural disaster area.
Yeah.
Um, but, anyways, the question I do have about that is like, when should business owners to be preemptive, take those photos? Like, should they do it on like once their inventory comes in, or like on of their store on a monthly basis, or their restaurant on a monthly basis? Like, how should you think about making sure you're ready for that moment? Because it's like it afterwards it's gone, right? So you have to preempt it.
Yeah. 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 You're asking a really, really great question. So if you can take photos before or videos before, that's always a bonus to have that stuff like preemptively. I would imagine most organizations, but I could be wrong, have some level of inventory management so you know it's there to kind of
Yeah,
undo what's damaged. But definitely after the fact, you should be taking photos of everything, especially to get into any type of trying to figure out what inventory is damaged or lost or gone. Um, and I'm gonna leave and come back and see if I can solve our lagging issue.
perfect.
Give me one sec.
And if you all have questions too, in the meantime, definitely feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I was going to say, while Emmy is rejoining us, you mentioned one of the things as someone who lost their home in the fires, you didn't realize you should have taken photos, and maybe you waited too long. Was there anything else as a homeowner? I know we're talking about business owners.
Yeah.
Any mistakes that you made, or things that you wish you would have done earlier?
I think that's definitely one of the biggest thing, is just like having as a homeowner, you don't, like she mentioned, as a business owner, you have inventory systems. So I would definitely encourage you, if you don't have a really clear inventory management process, and because you're a small business and maybe it's a store and it's like maybe you're just entering things into a Google sheet, I don't know, but like you should have that, because it's going to just make your life so much easier on the back of that. I would also say that having an evacuation plan, so that if you are in a disaster area, you're not sitting there trying to figure it out in this very emotional moment of, oh my gosh, here are all the things that I need to do. You're not like researching to figure out, how do I prep my business for what's about to occur. So I would say having like a preparedness plan ahead of time would have been so helpful for us. Like we brought nothing. Like we literally brought like the stupidest stuff. It's like I have a bunch of like leggings that, and then like left behind every nice handbag I've ever purchased and all of my jewelry, like this really dumb stuff. But I think if you have a go-to plan, I think it makes it a lot easier. Emmy, welcome back.
Sorry about that.
You're already sparkling clear, so I think this is going to be
Okay,
good.
great. Sorry about that, guys. I'm traveling today, so
No
the
worries.
internet's slightly out of my control.
No worries. So we were just finishing talking about the first three things a founder should really do in the first week after a disaster.
Yeah.
And then the next question I would really have is, for founders who've never created a business continuity plan, what's the easiest way to start? And can you really talk about what a business continuity plan is as well?
Yeah, it's basically the way I think about a business continuity plan is just a preparedness plan. So, what are you going to do
I
in
teed you up
case
accidentally perfectly on that, huh?
you sure did, yeah. Yeah. What are you going to do just in case something happens? And in this case, obviously, we're talking about natural disasters. And I think I could give you a list of 20 things, but I'd rather keep it super short, sweet, and pretty simple here. I think there are three big things that if you focus on and you do well, you'll end up probably 90% better than most. So the first one I think is just making sure that you understand your insurance. Like genuinely making sure you understand what it covers, how much it covers, when you're covered, and really understanding that like the coverage on your policy is going to be the thing that really, to be honest, saves you the most at the end here. Another big piece is just understanding, and this is part of understanding your policy, is just understanding where like your finances are going to flow after in case of a natural disaster. So it means familiarizing yourself with SBA with the Small Business Administration. Like understand what support they can provide you. They have a one sheet on their website that's phenomenal, that's really well expressed. And I can like send it to you guys and you guys can pass it on to your community. That really shows exactly what they do. And it's really informative. And I think just knowing that ahead of time so that you're not trying to play catch up on the back end would be really helpful. Same with FEMA, like understanding the services that FEMA provides. For example, in Los Angeles, FEMA provided about $43,000 for contents in your house, about another $43,000 for the actual structure, like contents. This could be contents inventory in your business, or it could be in your house, and then another $43,000 ish for a physical structure. And then they also provided some level of like relocation. Money or grant money as well. So there were a bunch of options, not to say that you would get the full amount, but there were like a bunch of options. But if you don't even know what you're looking for, it's like hard to go find it. And then I think the big piece is just how are you backing up your data? How are you backing up your customer information? What kind of communication are you thinking about? And then the last piece is just if you have a physical location, how are you thinking about potentially relocating or moving to a remote work environment? And what's your plan of attack for potentially doing something like that so that you're not having to deal with the plethora of things to do and come up with a plan around how you could potentially do that? It'll save you a ton of time, money, brain space when and if hopefully you're never affected by a natural disaster, but just to know that you're a little bit more prepared will actually go a really long way.
I can't agree enough on the knowing your insurance policy
Yeah.
piece, because, that's something that personally we've had to re-review, and there were holes in it that we realized after the fact. I mean, I think everybody's in that same boat coming out of this, is that you're like, oh, I wish I had this, or I wish I had that, or I didn't realize it only covered this for dwelling, or whatever the individual components are. Just being really well educated on that is super important. And then one thing I would also add to that, of the businesses that I've talked to in the continuity plan, is if you have a brick and mortar business, have a plan for selling products online. Like have a store. Like you don't have to be hyper focused on the store. Maybe it's not like your central pipeline for sales, but have it so that you can pivot that way and not have to wait months and invest a ton of money later to set it up, because those are the businesses that I found have had a relatively soft landing, is because they already have this other channel to be able to continue operating their business in. So that was just one learning that I've seen amongst the founders that have come out of this. And then what are some of the common mistakes business owners make in the midst of a crisis?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because they kind of relate back to the stuff we've been talking about. But the big things it's basically three main things. And I can kind of double tap on them too. But the biggest thing is waiting too long to act. You miss deadlines. They're like, if you have insurance, you actually have a duty to report your claim to make sure so that they know that something's wrong. And it's something called like good faith in mitigating further damage. And so you need to actually report this to make sure, like, let's say, example, a flood happened. You need to report that there was a water claim, because if you let water sit, it could potentially end up wreaking like way more damage on your business and costing way more money. So just acting quickly is actually pretty important. Once again, people just don't document things. I mean, it's, even you were kind of talking about it. I think people just they assume this kind of goes into my next one, which is they assume the insurance company is just going to do the thing that the insurance company says that they're going to do. And sometimes they do, but sometimes they also don't. And so you just want to make sure every receipt, every time you've had to travel for this, to hotel you had to stay in, et cetera, you just want to make sure that you are documenting everything. So it's just really key. And then we say we practice the 3 Ps when dealing with insurance companies. We While obviously we do like believe that they have the best intention, we also believe that basically the squeaky wheel kind of gets the oil. And we
True.
believe that you should be polite, you should be persistent, and you should also be pushy. And most people don't necessarily do that level of self-advocacy. And it's part of what we help people do is kind of make sure that they're really advocating for themselves and they understand all the terms and understand what they're like going after at some capacity and understand what their recovery could look like. But that's like a huge one, is people just immediately trust their insurance company. And not to say that they're the bad guys, because they aren't, but it's just you need to be an advocate for yourself first.
Yeah.
And then the last one is kind of along the insurance company side too, which is we've found that a lot of people just won't ask questions. They won't they won't ask for deadlines. They won't ask what specific terms mean on their coverage. They might not define, they may not make the insurance company define expectations in terms of getting back to them or payouts or, and the insurance adjuster that is hired is there to answer all of your questions. So you should be asking as many questions as possible. And every time that you feel like you're getting into anything adversary or you're disagreeing, you want to always just refer back to your policy. It is the thing that you just want to consistently refer back to. Like you don't want to get in an emotional battle here. You just want to consistently be referring back to your policy.
So another question I have, because I want to give people like real succinct advice. Here are the quick tips for, because just one thing is for sure is you have zero time after you've been through a disaster because there's
It's true.
just so much that's added to your plate. What is like the 60 seconds you would give every founder as a pep talk on resilience?
Yeah. It's a great question. 60 seconds on resilience. The 60 seconds on resilience is you didn't build your business overnight. And recovery also isn't going to happen overnight. And this is part of why that continuity plan is so important if you're looking at it from we call it pre-loss, like a pre-loss standpoint. But this is if you are in a post-loss standpoint where you've lost some of your business or you've been affected, this is a slow and long process with a lot of stops and starts. And just be patient. Make sure you're getting the right support. Make sure that you have people that you trust, that you're working with to get through it. And make sure you're getting emotional support as well.
Yeah.
And I promise, we've seen this many times. It will be one of the most challenging experiences of your life, and you will get through it. And it's going to be hard. Like I won't sugarcoat it. It's going to be hard, but you will get through the other end.
And it's going to be long.
And long. It's gonna be long and hard, but you will get through it. Like genuinely.
Great advice. Just like that was sent to me from one of the other women who had lost their homes. And it was a guy just who was talking about sort of chunking it up because it can be so much where you're like, you just look at the mountain and you're like, how am I ever going to get there? But he was saying like, designate like a certain time each day and like small amount of time where you're sitting there and you're like, okay, I'm just going to slog through this. And like, you'll eventually get through. But like, if you just set aside that time little by little, it's like a lot easier to do in those sort of baby steps than to try to like power through it all at once.
It's great advice.
Other thing is that AI has been our good friend in this process too, with just like when we have certain questions on, helping and also compiling data from our side, pulling together emails. Like we've had AI go through all of our email traffic and collate these really wonderful presentations for our insurance firm.
Yep.
So if you are sitting there and you're like, oh my gosh, it's insurmountable, the amount of emails and things that I need to go through on my business side, like thank God AI has stepped in to help us a little bit on the admin tasks. So I think that that's a really big thing. In terms of where founders can go to learn more of Bright Harbor, we know they can go to your website. They can look at the different plan options. The thing that Ray asked, Ray W., and this is something that you answered to some degree, But what are things to have in place in order to be ready for reconstruction,
Totally.
especially for getting financial aid? Like, so when you're going to present to try to get that SBA loan or a grant, what are the best things that you should have at the ready as sort of packages to take to try to get that funding?
Yeah, it's a great question. So you want me to talk about it as a small business? Would that
Yeah.
be most helpful? Okay,
Mhm.
cool. So SBA it's going to be a bit case dependent. You're going to do an initial, typically you do an initial, you come in and you submit an initial thing and then they come back and they ask you for more information. So it's just kind of getting the initial SBA submission is just kind of getting in line at some capacity, which is why we like we tell people just like sign up and get on it. In terms of the financial aid package, it's like it's hard to determine without understanding so many things, which is like your policy, your insurance policy, the potential benefits you can get from FEMA and the potential benefits you can get from SBA. And there also might even be some additional benefits that you can get for your employees, through the government as well. If you were affected, that might help you, let's say, pay some of the salary of your employees to make sure that you don't have to offload, your employees don't have to be as affected from a salary perspective, just because your business was affected, and it helps your kind of business stay alive. It's hard to, without knowing like specific businesses, to go too deep into exactly what I do, because it's going to depend on what type of business you are, what type of disaster you could be affected by, and then all of the other things that I mentioned. So unfortunately, it's harder for me to answer that one a little more pinpointedly.
No, but it's at least helpful to know, like, high
Yeah,
level,
yeah,
how to begin to start. And if you have been rejected by the
yeah,
SBA,
yeah.
does that mean like game over, you're never going to get that? Or are there ways to sort of try to get back in through another angle or repackaging and repositioning your application?
Yeah, it's a great question. We help people with this all the time. So we help people with this with SBA and with FEMA. So I would say maybe 80% of people, and I'm round numbering here, so please don't hold me to it, got denial letters from FEMA. And a non-insignificant amount of people also got what seemingly looked like denial letters from SBA. What most people didn't do, because of the level of overwhelm that people have been sitting in, is they didn't actually look past the first thing that says denied. And most of the time, it's actually a request for more information. So if you go all the way down to the bottom of that document, mostly what they're actually asking for is that you didn't submit the right information or you need to submit more information. And so a lot of the time, what we've built is not only processes to help you submit that additional information, but also templates that if you do want to go in and say, hey, I got rejected by the SBA, I want to actually fight that. We actually have templates pre-built that you can submit to the SBA and actually ask for them to reopen your case and look at it again. So
Awesome.
that's kind of, yeah.
Okay, that's great to know because we've already heard from a number of founders who have gotten rejected,
Yeah,
sadly,
we can
SBA.
probably help there.
Yeah. So everybody, I think that this is such an invaluable resource. I think it is a really fair price. In fact, like I think you get so much more for your money than you have to pay. So I highly encourage you to reach out to them. By the way, we're getting no kickbacks for this. I just wanted to share Bright Harbor with all of you because on our side, it's been so integral to have somebody by your side where all of these questions that you're asking yourself and up against, you actually have an expert to help you weed through. So thank you, Emmy, for joining us and
Pleasure.
doing what you're doing. It's such important work. And everyone, just final reminder, 10th house, we have our open enrollment for our home cohort. That's for our private membership community where you can join other home founders as they're growing their business. We'll have expert programming, bringing in some really incredible advisors like Bridget Romanek and Mimi Brown, who have really amazing interior design firms, as well as many others that have retail presence that is national and global in certain cases. But we would love to have you inside and helping each other grow and scale alongside one another. But thank you all for taking the time. Emmy, really can't say thank you enough. And I hope everybody that is here is staying positive on your journey, and just know, like Emmy said, you're going to get through it. So
Thank you so much for having me.
appreciate it.